Jennifer just winning a special election in January, a stunning lambasting of hapless Republican Joe May. There were districts, there were precincts she was getting 70, 75, 80% that had been pretty much split in the past. Obviously, the seat of Jennifer Wexton, she got there by defeating, who was it, John Whitbeck. This also, you go back, this was the seat of Mark Herring before he became Attorney General, so it's a Democratic seat, but it was pretty competitive. Jennifer Boysko rolling up huge numbers in this district in Northern Virginia, and really goes to show you the blue wave that's just hit that entire area. And she's joining us now. We can call her now, Senator Jennifer Boysko. Senator, good to have you.
Good morning, John. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fine. You've got your own theme song, We're the Champions, based on your great victory on the first week in January. It's tough to get people out early in January for that. And so great job. Before we get into politics and some of your bills and some of the things that's going on in the State House, just inform our listeners about the geography of your district and the numbers that you rolled up and how that kind of is taking shape. I mean, the numbers were kind of shocking. So can you just go over that?
Sure. So the district is Eastern Loudoun County, Western Fairfax County, Herndon, parts of Chantilly, parts of Ashburn, Broadlands, all the way up to Leesburg and all of the Dulles Airport area. And the breakdown of the district is about 73% Loudoun, 26.5% Fairfax County. I happen to live in Herndon, but have worked in the region organizing for a long time and know people well and have built relationships all throughout the region over the past decade and a half, probably. Mm-hmm. And you know, the numbers were really strong for us. We did do better than I think anybody predicted, but our polling showed us that was, you know, our polling was actually said that I would make about 67% of the, you know, I had about 67% of the support of the voters at the very beginning of this election, and we came out with just a hair short of 30%. So it was great. We worked really hard.
Getting 70% of the vote in a district that was, you know, somewhat competitive. I remember when John Whitbeck, the former chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, ran against Wexton. I mean, they actually thought they could win that district. It was certainly a lot more competitive when Mark Herring was there. Mark Herring also, at the time, when he was in the state Senate, basically was viewed to be a moderate, right? So things have changed, Jennifer. No question, you put a great organization together. Congratulations on your victory.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And looking forward to serving the community. Excited to be here.
All right. Good. Sixth floor where I go, because it's just, it's not a mob. And so next time, I think next week, I'm in Marston's office. I hope you'll be able to pop over there. We're with Senator Jennifer Boysko here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. New senator, state senator. Jennifer, some of the top bills going on. Before I get to yours specifically, I want to get to maybe three of the top ones. Number one is gaming. All of a sudden, you know, we've gone forever, no casinos, no anything. Now we're looking at potential casinos in Virginia. We're looking at being able to bet with bookmaking operations on football, basketball, baseball, and sports, whatever. There's a couple of bills floating around. Now there's a bill that Senator Linwood Lewis introduced the other day that is counter to the Portsmouth, Danville, Bristol bill, saying that it should only be in towns that have, or cities with over 200,000 people. How do you come down on this?
Well, my understanding is that I haven't looked at Senator Lewis's bill as closely. I've heard some talk about it, but my understanding is the other casino bill that is being presented provides the opportunity for a referendum for the locality to make that decision for themselves. I typically try to support localities making their own decisions about things, so it's something that I'm more likely to support than others. And I don't know why one locality would have the monopoly on that. Southwest Virginia is, you know, economically depressed and struggling, and perhaps this might be something that would be helpful to them.
Now, what about the Pamunkey Indian tribe is getting screwed in this deal, right? Because, they've gone through all the things. They got their jurisdiction. They got the land. They got all the things they need to do. A casino. They've been very patient. They waited forever. Now they're getting cut out of the thing because they have to jump through all these hoops. And so they're not on an even playing field with the commercial interest. And one of the bills that Linwood Lewis, part of his bill that he has in there, is that it would put the Pamunkey Indian tribe on equal footing with the commercial casinos, so they both have opportunity and time frame to get their casinos done. I've got the chief on today because I just think by this whole deal, Linwood Lewis trying to protect them and just make it even. Is that something that you're going to take a serious look at?
I'll definitely take a serious look at it. This has not been something that I've followed very closely. It's not in my region, and it doesn't directly affect the people who live in the 33rd District, so it's not something that I have been following very, very closely. I still need to learn more, but definitely I try to give it every single bill that comes through a fair chance and try to understand both sides of the argument on them.
There's a lot of gun legislation coming up right now, restricting guns. A lot of our listeners that are Second Amendment advocates going ballistic over it. Your colleague Amanda Chase came to a hearing the other day. She had a firearm on her side. Last time we saw that was when Joe Morrissey came to the well with an AK-47. That was not loaded, by the way. Why is your party determined to restrict gun owners' rights to bear arms? I mean, what is the obsession with this?
Well, I come from the Deep South, and everybody in my family had a gun. My mom used to carry a gun. My stepfather, my brothers are gun owners. People who are following the law and are managing this safely are not nobody's going after them. Nobody is saying that they should lose their right to bear arms. The problem is that we've had people who have gone in and murdered multiple children, or people going to a movie theater, or worshiping in church or in schools. And it is actually the number one thing that I heard about when I was out walking door to door to talk to my constituents, concerned about gun violence, which is different than just taking a gun out of the hand of somebody who is following the law and is, treating the firearm with the caution and care that people like the folks in my family have done for generations. But the issue that I think people are trying to do is to say there are some times and there are some certain people where it would be more dangerous for them to have to the public safety. And things like a red flag law, where if somebody is at risk of hurting themselves or someone else, it's just a common sense step, I believe, to temporarily say perhaps we need to, separate you from your firearm right now because you're not stable. I don't see how that is a questionable or a controversial issue. It's passed in Republican states. It's a temporary measure so that the person can get back on their feet. And I think good people can, on all sides can agree on this. I'll also tell you, my family, strong Republicans in Alabama, believe that background checks are really an important thing. They completely agree that you should have to go through a background check. I believe that you should have to have some training as well. Nobody's saying that good law-abiding folks should lose their guns, though.
Jennifer, when you mention a background check, you're talking about buying a gun at the show, at the gun shows, right? Because we have background checks. So that's, I guess that's common ground. I totally agree with you on that, because if I walk into a gun store today, right here where I am in Richmond, I go up the street, I try to buy a gun, I have to go through a background check. Doesn't matter if I own 1 or 5 or 100. I have to go through a background check. There's a waiting period. That's already passed. Everybody gets it's fine. I could go to a gun show, though, at the Hampton Coliseum, and I don't have to show anything, and I buy what's ever on the table. Or you could buy them outside on somebody's truck. That, to me, makes no sense. It never made sense to me, and this is where I think gun advocates and Second Amendment people should really take a strong look at this, because if you can't get a gun at a regular store without going through the background check process that everybody agrees is the right thing to do, why would you be able to do it at a gun store? Why would you have a loophole? Makes no sense. Here's the problem. Then I want to get to your bills. Here's the problem. Second Amendment advocates in Virginia see this, and they're like, oh, yep, there they go again. And, they always say it's only this and only that, and then it ends up eroding gun owners' rights. And then they say, the ultimate goal is to take my firearm away. And that's where this discussion always evolves to. How do you change that? How does Jennifer Boysko change that narrative on both sides?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I think there's a lot of fear-mongering on both sides that, when
Right.
you suggest that something as simple as closing the gun hole loop show, that's somehow going to end up with someone taking their gun away. It's just absolutely not true. So I think we all need to be honest. We need to look at what has happened in our country over the past several years and realize something has to change. We cannot continue burying our babies and our children because some maniac who should never have had access to a gun has gone and done a mass murder. But that doesn't mean that, our sportsmen and our hunters shouldn't continue to be able to have access to their firearms when they're responsible and they treat
Right.
it with the care and concern that is necessary for them. I think there's a lot of fear-mongering among the folks who are worried about this. And I think really it's not coming from the everyday person, but it's coming from folks who are profiting from selling guns. I'm just going to be bold there and say that they're really ginning up the fear amongst the communities of folks.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. We're with newly elected State Senator Jennifer Boysko. She is a Democrat from the Northern Virginia area, just got elected in a special election. Here's an example, though. I just got a text here from Jennifer Wesley in Edgewood, Maryland, who says, okay, here we go again. Should Cray Deeds be prosecuted for allowing his son access to a firearm for suicide since he did not secure it the same way you would prosecute me? How do you respond to that?
I'm not talking about prosecute. I don't think we're trying to prosecute people who have gone through terrible tragedies. I think we're trying to learn from those tragedies and try to figure out how we can make things safer for folks. This isn't a prosecutorial exercise.
All right, Jennifer Boysko, you've got a couple of bills that you're presenting in the Virginia State Senate this week. Give me your top two. What are they, and what's the reasoning behind them?
Sure. Well, paid family and medical leave is one issue that I am concerned about. I am a mother of two daughters. One of them was born 2 months early, and this was 21 years ago when my husband was working paycheck to paycheck. He wasn't able to take, more than a week off because we couldn't afford to lose his salary. The paid medical and family leave would provide opportunity for an insurance program where employees and employers could pay into it, and then that would help cover the cost when an employee has a family emergency or caring for a sick family member. This is the hopefully we're going to realize that folks' lives sometimes get more complex than we want them to be, and we need to allow them to be able to take care of their loved ones for a temporary emergency. Another bill that I have, I really focus a lot on women's equality, and that would be the Equal Pay Act, where we would be making sure that equal pay for equal work is a reality in Virginia. I don't know if you're aware of this, but women still make 78 cents on the dollar, and it's time that in Virginia we work to stop that. It would prohibit discrimination between employees, providing a less favorable employment opportunity, limiting an employee's rights to discuss their wages amongst themselves, or an infringement upon an employee's right not to disclose their wage or salary history, and preventing a retaliation against an employee for any of that. And it would establish criteria when wage differentials between employees are permitted. So, economic opportunity and being able to take care of your family is a really important thing. And I'm looking forward to having that debate and discussion in the Senate this year.
Well, your second bill, equal pay, that sounds like lawsuits waiting to happen. I mean, I don't know how you regulate that, because it could be based on experience, could be based on education, could be based on prior work history, work ethic. Salaries are given. I mean, it's just not, okay, I'm going to pay you less because you're one sex or the other. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. So anytime you give person A, like if I were to do a performance review and I got two people and I give one a 5% raise and, give them an A, and I give the other person a C and give them a 2% raise, and it's because I've got the paperwork there. The other person happens to be a female or a transgender, whatever. They could just sue and say, well, he got a 5, I got a 2, I'm being discriminated. Now I've got to go and litigate my performance review. Have you thought that through?
Well, we've been working with stakeholders on this all year long, and really a lot of this, there is a bona fide merit system. We want to make sure that the seniority system is taken into account. We want to make sure that the quality of production is taken into account, that the employer demonstrates that the system is fair. So we are looking through all of those things. One of the big things is there are very concrete instances where employees are not allowed to talk about how much they make among themselves. And there are very clear instances where two people are hired at the same time, same credentials, and both hard workers, but find out that several years later they are being paid vastly different. We actually had an instance of this right here in the General Assembly, and there were two employees of the Commonwealth, in the General Assembly, right, where they were doing the same work. One was making close to $20,000 more than the other, and it was very clear that the scale of work, the quality of work were exactly on par with one another, and the person who was making the lesser amount of money had actually worked here for decades longer than the other person. And now
that's your own house. I mean, you guys can figure that out. The concern that any business owner has is the litigation that goes with it. I get what you're saying. I would have to understand how, as a business owner myself, with a bunch of people that we employ, how I'm not going to get sued when Ann, who runs the company, gives somebody a 5% raise and the other person 3% based on merit. I don't know how that works. Let's just get to family leave for a second. I'm all for family leave, right? I mean, I love children. I've got one still at home, have 3. I get it. But who pays for pay? Like, I always got family leave. Like, I always got it. Like, if somebody wants to take 13 weeks off because they have a baby, that job should be there when they get back. I, as an employer, I got to go figure out how to get through that 13 weeks. But when you talk about paid family leave, now you're saying, okay, let's take Michael, my producer, right? Can't live without him. So he gets married. They have a baby. He says to me, John, I'm going to have to take a month off, and you're going to have to pay me along with my other vacation. You pay me for that too, because I got this bill that the Senator from the 33rd District sponsored, and now you've got to pay somebody to replace me, and you got to pay me. Plus, I also get my vacation. Thanks, Jennifer. I got to fork over another $10,000 I don't have. Who pays for this?
So it's an insurance. It would be setting up an insurance program. So just like you buy car insurance, right? Like I pay into car insurance every quarter or every 6 months. Hopefully, I don't ever have to use that. But I know that if I do have an emergency, I get into a car accident, that pool of money is there and it's going to help me. This is a similar concept, right? It would be that there would be a premium that would be paid. That and
who pays it?
If you have fewer than,
who pays it?
I think 25
who pays it?
employees. You wouldn't have to do it, but you would be able to.
Well, you have 25. Who pays the premium? The employee, or
both.
Is the employer mandated to pay it?
Both would pay into it.
So now you're forcing employees to pay insurance they may or may not need, and you're forcing the employer to pay insurance they may or may not need. Right? As a small business owner, I don't want to pay insurance I don't need. I'm trying to make payroll at the end of the week, right?
Sure, and there's a carve out for small employers. So this is really
so. And then here's the other issue, and I'm just being honest with you. If
Absolutely.
you have a carve out and say, you're good for 25 employees, I'm going to get to 24 employees and stop. Then I'm going to start to hire 1099 contractors and job out the work because I don't want to pay all this money. This is another one of these things. They look good on paper, but then when you run a business, it's like, well, I'll just stop at 25. I mean, we went through the same thing with Obamacare, where it was like people just stopped hiring at 25. Like, I'm just not going to grow my business because if I have to hire another 5 people, I got to pay all this Obamacare money. I'm out. And so I'll just stagnate my business until it plays out. I mean, this is the reality, Jennifer, these things that you guys put through the state Senate and through the legislator when you're not dealing with business owners that have to meet a payroll. And I'm not being combative. I mean, I like the concept. Sure. I just don't want to pay for it. And so, these are some of the things you're going to have to figure out as you go forward with these bills.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important to hear from people who have concerns with it or who have challenges so that we can. I mean, part of this is a newer concept. Part of this is starting the conversation of, okay, families have emergencies that come up, and they live on limited incomes. How can we help them address these problems as a as a society? How are we going to go forward with this? In other countries, they have been able to work this out.
Yeah, well, they don't have the economic growth because their companies are squashed with over regulation, and their taxes are too high, and so they're not growing. And I mean, look, we're out of time, and I get the concept.
Okay.
The devil's in the detail. I just don't want to pay for it, and I don't want to be mandated to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And look, in a tight economy, if I don't treat my employees well, guess what? They're going to leave, right? Because there's jobs available somewhere else.
Right.
Simple. So, it's kind of like the market is going to take care of this as long as your economy is growing. Senator, I got to roll. I'm way over our time, but I love having you on.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, John. I look forward to talking to you again and continuing our conversations. Have a great day.
All right.